is Amber Masso, and I am the Director of Communications and Alumni Engagement for the Terry Foundation. I'm so glad everybody could join us today. I'm so glad to have this wonderful panel with me. And it's really just our honor to do this mental health check-in for our Terry family. So let's go ahead and get started and have everybody just go around and introduce themselves really quick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany Page Carter. I'm a 2018 Terry Scholar at UT Dallas, Terry Transfer Scholar. And my major is, I'm a major in Arts, Technology, and Emerging Communication with a focus in Critical Media Studies.
Awesome.
Do you want me to go next? Okay, cool. Hi, y'all. My name is Karla. I'm a 2017 traditional Terry Scholar with a major in psychology and minors in diversity studies and honors studies at Texas State University.
Awesome. Hi, you guys. My name is Andrew Jones. I am a 2018 transfer scholar at UTA. I'm getting a major in English with a minor in women and gender studies, and then a second minor in law and legal studies. Plan to go to law school after all of this is done.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kristin Barron. I'm a 2007 U of H traditional Terry Scholar. I also serve as a Scholar Relations Coordinator at the Terry Foundation for 4 of our Terry universities.
Hi, good morning. I'm Nicole Griffith. I am a 2006 Terry Scholar from UTSA, and I studied psychology in undergrad, and now I work in private practice as a professional counselor.
All right, great, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Corey. Hey, Sierra. We have some people in the chat already saying good morning. So let's just jump right into things. Nicole, what are some common challenges that people are facing right now?
Well, you know, this is just a really challenging time, I think, for everybody. And really one of the main things that I want to get across today is just that if you're struggling right now, that's so normal. And if this feels difficult, it's because it is. Like, this is a really hard situation, and people are having to figure out how to deal with something that they've never done before. I mean, none of us have ever lived through a pandemic, and all the isolating and things being canceled. Like, this is just unprecedented. So it makes sense that you might be having a hard time. However you're responding to this, feeling, reacting, you're probably not overreacting. This is just really difficult. So I wanted to talk at first about like some of the ways that you might be feeling or you might be reacting. It's not like this is going to be true for everybody, but it's just some different things that I've heard from people, common ways that they're dealing with this really weird situation that we're in. So things you might be feeling worried, anxious, really stressed out, overwhelmed, having some kind of like racing thoughts going through your head. Certainly, I think almost everyone is feeling disappointed and grieving some kind of losses right now, whether that is losing an event or a celebration like graduation or your senior year or an upcoming wedding or family gathering. There's all kinds of things that were canceled, and I'm not sure if I know anyone who didn't lose something like that. Also, there's just this sense of like losing a sense of innocence and safety in the world. Like, maybe you didn't really think that something like this could happen. I certainly wouldn't have believed it if somebody had told me, you know, a few months ago, like, oh, this is what the world is going to look like in March and April. So there's a little bit of a loss of safety there that you might be feeling. Also, some people are losing income, jobs, things that really affect your day-to-day and your family and your life immensely. That can cause a lot of stress. And, you know, you're losing your routine, like what you were expecting life to look like. It doesn't look like that right now. So all of those things are real losses that deserve to be grieved, and it's normal to be feeling sad about that. One thing that I think is super common that I know I've struggled with too is just the sense of uncertainty right now. Like, we don't know when things are going to go back to normal, or if they're even going to go back to normal. Like, what does that look like after this? So that's unsettling for sure. You also might notice some things that are a little bit less obvious, but probably are related to what's going on. You might be feeling a little more irritable. You might find yourself going to like drinking or smoking or using substances more than you usually do to just kind of like shut off the overwhelm and the hurt right now. You might actually notice some like physical symptoms of worry coming up, like you might have trouble sleeping, you might be eating more or less than you usually do, you might be tired. Some people may even be having trouble with like breathing and getting kind of physically like shaky, almost like you had too much caffeine, or feeling kind of like nauseous, sick to your stomach often. All of those things can be like sneaky signs that anxiety is happening. You might not know that's what it is, but oftentimes those are clues that your body's giving you that things are not right and that you're feeling overly worried. Kind of a weird thing, but people feeling either really isolated, obviously, we're all doing social distancing, or feeling really crowded and like they're not getting enough me time, or both. I mean, I think most people are doing a little bit of both. Like, I miss people, but I also miss having time alone with myself that maybe I'm not getting as much of right now. And the last thing I wanted to talk about with like how people might be feeling is this kind of like pressure to be dealing with this or reacting in some kind of specific way. So a lot of people are feeling guilt, like, you know, other people have it worse. Who am I to complain about my situation? You know, like, at least I have my job, my family, my health, whatever. But that doesn't tend to be very helpful, because it's not like there's only a finite amount of suffering that comes with this, right? Yeah, somebody else might have it worse than you, but you're still dealing with really hard things that you've probably never had to deal with in this exact same way before. So that is valid. And I always tell people, kind of joking, kind of not, don't should all over yourself, right? Like, meaning don't get so caught up in like, oh, I should be stronger, I should be tougher, I should be doing better, I should be like getting all these things done, I have all this time, I should be super productive right now. Don't do any of that. All that self-criticism is just going to hurt you. So now is not the time. So if any of those things made sense to you and sound like what you're feeling, just know that like, that's normal, that's valid. It's okay to not be okay right now.
Right.
Great, thanks, Nicole. So next, I wanted all of us to kind of go through and just do a quick check-in to talk about, you know, where we're at right now during this quarantine, both physically and just where we are, but, you know, what our biggest challenges are that we're facing. And then for those of you that are watching live, we'd love to hear that too, if you'd like to post in the stream, you know, what changes have you had to undergo and what challenges is that creating for you? Whenever you talked a little bit about the physical manifestations of things, Nicole, I totally related to that. It took me a couple of days to recognize that like the feeling that I was having of like almost choking a little bit and my heart pounding at certain times in the evening, which is not a normal thing for me, was a total manifestation of like some stress and anxiety that usually came along with after I had a check-in with my parents who were 2 hours away. So that stuff is very real, but I just want to get you guys started with sharing your personal experiences.
Right, I'll start. So right now I'm at home with my husband, who is also an essential worker, and our 2 boys, Sam and Jack. Sam also has severe autism, so there are some different things that come along with that. He's 12, and Jack is 6 years old. And so I think our biggest challenge is really just, for me, is juggling being a mom, homeschooling, Sam's teletherapies, because again, he has autism, so that's part of it. And also all of my full-time coursework at UTD. And then I also work as the communications intern for the foundation. So, so I do all of those things, but it's all in a bubble at home. And so that's probably my biggest challenge, is managing all of that.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'm at my apartment in San Marcos. I was home for spring break, but I realized I couldn't do any work there. Love my family, but it's very hard. I don't even have my own room. So I'm back in San Marcos. I'm here with my 2 roommates and their 2 dogs. So the dogs are amazing because I get, you know, the love. But I think my biggest challenge that I'm facing is I'm graduating in August now. So my biggest challenge is definitely senioritis, being on top of everything for seniors being canceled. So it's like I have nothing to look forward to anymore in terms of graduation, picnic, awards ceremonies, or whatever the case may be. And on top of that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm almost done. I have 3 weeks left, but I'm tired. So that's definitely my biggest difficulty that I'm facing currently.
Okay, I'll go next. So I'm here at home. I have my parents here. We've got like 3 dogs, and then we have a close friend of mine who also lives here as well. And I'm also having to work from home. I say having, I shouldn't have said it like having. I'm getting to work from home, which is great, and I love it. I have a whole office set up front where I work daily, just helping as much as I can within our office. And so I'm really lucky to get to do that. But I think one of the biggest issues that I've had is kind of like what Tiffany said about being in the bubble and doing all of it in one space. And so having to be able to delegate between school and work and personal life all at the same time.
So I am home in Pearland with my husband, Andre, our 2-year-old son, AJ, our Yorkie, and I also happen to be 6 months pregnant. So growing also a human at the same time. So that has been a challenge probably that I can note first, is just navigating pregnancy during the pandemic and the adjustments to medical appointments, but also just really having a limited support system at that kind of crucial time where you need it. Both of us are very privileged to still be working from home, so we appreciate that. We're a 2-parent home with our son, so that's also a privilege, but it's coming with challenges as far as, you know, there's been a lot of publicity about school-age children, but there are definitely some different demands when you have a toddler running around who wants to be attached to you, and used to having 12 playmates at daycare, and our poor Yorkie is exhausted by becoming a new playmate. So those are probably our main challenges right now.
And I'm at home also, working from home, lucky to be able to do that. My husband is here also, although he's still going to work on his normal schedule. He's an essential worker. And then we have our 4-month-old daughter who's here also. Honestly, I'm pretty lucky with my home situation. It's fairly easy for me to balance work and home at this point. But probably my biggest challenge has just been managing my own anxiety about the situation that's going on at the same time as I'm, doing the work I do, carrying a lot of anxiety and worries for my clients as well.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for sharing. Nicole, the panelists have prepared some questions for you. So if y'all would like to jump in, we can start talking about just the different things you'd like to hear from her.
Yeah, so I'll start. The first question that I have, so a lot of us have seen this very popular meme floating around on social media. It says, if you don't come out of this quarantine with new skills, your side hustle started, more knowledge, you never like time, you like discipline. And I hate it. So I really think that this message puts an unrealistic expectations on people during a national pandemic, a crisis. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Exactly what you said are my thoughts. I hate it too. I hate it. I think it's so unhelpful to people. I mean, like, if you are living your best life right now and really being efficient and productive, good on you. But like, this is not really the time to strive to be the best version of yourself you've ever been. Now is more of a time to just like make it through. And sure, do your best. But I think that kind of message is really just making people look at themselves and criticize themselves at a time where like it's just it's a hard time. Like, now's the time to be kind and lenient with yourself, not the time to be saying like, oh, you know, if you don't come out of this with all your ducks in a row and like better off before, then that makes you lazy or something. Like, no, hate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do have one more question. How would you, what advice would you give to parents on addressing the current climate that we're in with their children?
Oh, it's so hard. You know, I think obviously it depends on what age your kids are, what you're going to share with them. You want to tailor that message to their developmental level. But I think the main thing is just like, be open to having those conversations with them and give them information that's fact-based, not fear-based. And, you know, maybe just ask them, hey, like, if you have any questions about what you've heard from your friends or from the TV or some kind of social media, like, ask me about them. I'd be happy to like talk to you about that, because they're going to be getting these fear-based messages from somewhere, even within the isolation of your home. So if you can invite them to talk to you about that, that's going to be really helpful. And then the only other thing that I would say is important in general for parents is less about how to talk to them and more just about how to be, because the better you're taking care of yourself and your own anxiety and your own attitude towards what's going on, the better your kids are going to do, because they're learning so much about how to react to this just from watching you.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that.
We actually had a parent weigh in on our Facebook feed. She said, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so quarantine life is very much like summer, except we can't go anywhere to break up our days or hang out with others for interaction. So my nights and mornings feel so much like Groundhog Day, and that's just mentally draining sometimes. I can be depressed, or sometimes I'm anxious, and sometimes I just want to do nothing, which is not helpful because I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah, totally can relate to that Groundhog Day, like monotonous feeling. And without having any kind of, you know, timeline for when this ends, that's really hard to deal with mentally. There's no light at the end of the tunnel right now.
At all.
Right. I mean, I can chime in on that too. So we're, you know, I'm here with 2 kids, and, you know, my older son, he is 12, but he has severe autism. So his needs are a lot different. And so it is hard. Every day is kind of repeating over and over. And it's not like being a stay-at-home parent. I've done that before. We could leave the house, you know, and go places. So it's a lot harder. So give yourself some grace. You know, that would be my advice, because it is hard.
Okay, so it's my turn to ask questions. Okay, so my question to you, and I've received some of this style questions like this from my students. I work as a peer mentor at Texas State. So I've seen a couple students deal with this, and then I've dealt with this in the past. So my question is, what advice would you give to scholars who had to move back into their family homes, and then having to set boundaries with their parents and families, and like, hey, I need to do work, hey, I need my free space, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, boundaries are tough, especially with our families. You know, one thing that comes to mind is that probably things have changed quite a bit since the last time you lived with your parents, right? Like, maybe that's not true for everyone, but for most situations, like, you've been living on your own, and now like, bam, you're back here in your house. And sometimes the default thing that happens is it goes back to whatever system was in place before, but that may not be a good fit for you or for your family anymore because you guys have changed. But yeah, talking about those boundaries is so important, but so hard. I think those conversations can be really uncomfortable for people, but I like to think of it more from the side of like, this is going to benefit you, so it's worth the cost of the uncomfortable conversation. You know, I think when you don't talk about your boundaries and you don't ask for what you need from the people who you're seeing 24/7 right now, that really can cause a lot of resentment on the back end when you're not getting what you need. But really, like, it's up to you to let the people know, hey, like, this is what I need. I need from this time to this time for the house to be quiet so I can study or whatever. Because if you're not telling them what you need, how are they supposed to know? So it's really kind of like you can think of it like a gift to them. You're giving them the path to success, right? And then they just have to walk the path versus them trying to guess what you might need or what you might want.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then I had one more question. So what advice, so I'm skipping my original question, but I felt like this one is relevant to me and probably a lot of people who are going to watch, is what advice would you give to seniors who are upset about losing out on their senior year?
It's so disappointing, I'm sure. I mean, I can just imagine if I try to put myself in those seniors' shoes, it's a lot of really important milestones and celebrations that you're not going to be able to have, at least not in the way that you were expecting. So really my advice is just to let yourself grieve, you know, don't like wallow forever, right? That's not going to help you, but let yourself feel disappointed and sad and mad and like literally go through the stages of grief if that's what you're feeling, because just trying to stuff it down, deny it, pretend that it's fine doesn't tend to work very well long term. So I don't want to talk through all the stages of grief right now because it's a lot, but you can Google it. It's pretty digestible information, and you know, just feel it and know that that's okay that you feel it. You know that that's okay that you're feeling like this isn't fair and this, you know, this coronavirus pandemic stole these things from me that I was really looking forward to, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's my turn now. And so my first question, I'll like give a small preface into the question. So I'm gay, and I know that like we have many other scholars, I'm sure, who are as well. What type of advice would you have for people who, like in the LGBT community specifically, who maybe got to college and like came out or were like, you know, finding ways of expressing themselves at college that now may have been taken away from them because they're either not out to their family or, you know, circumstances just don't allow for that, whatever those circumstances might be. How do you suggest people to navigate like the types of feelings that would come with being forced back into the closet in whichever version of that may be for them?
Yeah, that's tough. And, you know, I think kind of along the lines of that, like, don't put so much pressure on yourself to do everything thing right now. This probably is not like a good safe time to come out to your family, right? If you haven't done that yet. You know, if it feels like it is, cool. Make sure you are bringing a supportive, trusted person into that process with you to support you and to help you through it, because it's always something that is tough. But yeah, probably now is not the time for that for most people. And so that being said, I think it's more important than ever to stay connected, albeit maybe virtually connected, to the people who you can really be your whole like real self with. You know, make sure you're still hooked into your supportive communities and your friend group and all the outlets that you had before. As much as possible, stay engaged in those, because having to just go back into a closeted type situation where you're not really able to express your real self is awful. You know, no one should have to do that. However, the reality is many people feel that they do have to because of their situation. So yeah, stay really connected as much as you can. Talk, have some real talks with the people that that you can be yourself with.
Thank you for that. I'm not personally experiencing that at all, but I just know, like, I have other friends of mine, like you said, who are talking to our friend group and getting to be their real selves with our friend group, who have really been struggling with the reality of not being able to be who they normally are while they're at home. So I appreciate that that note. And then my second question kind of also speaks to what you were talking about being hooked into those communities as much as you can. I know we kind of already touched on like going through the grieving process, and this may be a similar answer, but my question would be, what type of advice do you have for people who are grieving like specialized communities that they have for themselves because suddenly they don't have that? So for students, when you're not on campus and you have like those core people that you always are in classes with, or like for us Terrys, you know, a lot of us are connected digitally with our our fellow Terry scholars, but not being actually there in those places. And then, you know, just generally like your work community or, you know, whatever those communities may be where you spend significant amount of time normally that now has been taken away from you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely similar things as far as like feel the grief, don't try to stuff it down, acknowledge that that's a loss, you know, that it's okay that you're feeling bad about that. That's normal. And then, you know, I love the idea of still trying to virtually connect with those groups. I know that's like really hard in practice to do, but you know, maybe having some kind of like virtual happy hour or something like that, maybe like a big group call that could feel more like those communities that you have on campus could be helpful. And then also, you know, you may have to find some like alternative supports for now, right? That might look like picking up a new hobby or starting to journal or listening to a podcast from like a like-minded individual or reading a new book, whether that be like a self-help encouragement type book or just like a really good fiction book or something by a celebrity or an author or a speaker that you look up to who's a role model to you. Things like that are not like perfect replacements for that community, but they could fill some of that time that you have now with something that's going to give you some meaning and some value.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nicole, my question for you is going to really center around the financial stress that families and individuals are feeling right now, potentially. And I know that that can vary. So whether it's a potential job loss coming down the pipeline soon that they've just been notified of, maybe a spouse or a parent. As you know, many of our students, we all had financial need to receive the scholarship, right? And what we notice as Scholar Relations is that our students have grit, they're hardworking. They don't necessarily want to return to the same circumstances that they potentially have walked away from by receiving the scholarship and receiving the opportunity. So I think that financial strain can be a trigger for many of our students and alumni. So how do you navigate that? But also, we've seen it publicized that there's an uptick in domestic violence, child abuse, those different factors. That financial strain can really cause that stress to just become overwhelming in a family. So what are some coping mechanisms that you would suggest?
Oh, man, that's a big one. And I think you nailed it by saying that financial stress is often a trigger for people, especially people who have lived through difficult financial situations in their family of origin. And then now maybe they have a family of their own, and they're staring right in the face of potentially a lot of financial stress, either currently happening or like you said, coming down the pipe later, from losses of jobs, losses of income. I think that the main thing that you can do is talk to each other and support each other as a family or as partners or as roommates or friends or, whoever your chosen like family consists of. I really like the idea of having kind of simple but direct conversations about what kind of support you'd like from each other, like just asking, how can I support you? How are you feeling? What do we need as a family right now? What's my part in that? How can I contribute? Those kind of conversations can be really rich and helpful to have with the other people in your family. It doesn't make the financial stress go away, but hopefully having those types of conversations can help you to unite and come together as a family against this problem versus, what happens so often is that people get stressed and then it pulls them apart, right? And they start to pick at each other or, get kind of snappy because of these things that are stressing everyone out. So really coming together and supporting each other, I think, is more important than ever right now in stuff like that. Another thing I like just in general for any kind of stress, financial stress or academic stress or relational stress, any of it, is making sure that you're doing some kind of like gratitude practice. It sounds kind of cheesy and like counterintuitive, but if you can really challenge yourself to, either like make a real list or a mental list of things that are actually good right now, things that you're grateful for, things that you do have, maybe your health, your family, your house. If you do have some kind of income, even though it's maybe not as much as you're used to getting, all these things can be things that you can keep in mind just to try to naturally shift that perspective from focusing on the negative, which is what all of us humans do just all the time, naturally, not your fault. It's just because you're a human, you focus on the bad stuff. And, shifting that over to balancing, there are some positives here too. That can really, really help to counter some of those like spiraling negative thoughts that people get into when they're under a lot of stress.
Thank you. Just a small follow-up question. When navigating conversations with employers, potentially we have some alumni or students who are trying to figure out, if the state reopens or if my district reopens, what are the decisions that I make if I have internal conflict about returning to work? Because that can obviously be stressful because they both seem like essential decisions, right? Your health or your paycheck potentially, or childcare and those types of decisions. So can you walk us through how to potentially approach those conversations? Because I know not only do we have employees who are Terry Scholars, but we have employers, people who are trying to steward their relationship with those that they supervise as well.
Yes, I mean, I think those are such hard choices to have to make, right? Like, if you're put in a situation where it's either go back to your job and risk your health or stay home, stay safe, and then you don't have an income anymore, that's a really difficult situation to be in. And I think it is important to be really clear about what your boundaries are for yourself. You know, boundaries are just like a big word for like what's okay and what's not okay for you, right? And at the end of the day, I think you have to do what's right for you and what's right for your family and your situation. And there's no like universal answer for what that looks like. But certainly, you know, you can, as an employee who's faced with these decisions, you can be assertive and upfront about what you really need to be able to go back to work and to be comfortable and to feel healthy and safe and do what's right for you and your family. Whether or not that is met with success, I don't know. You know, that's kind of one of those big unknowns that really has, I think, everyone pretty concerned and unsettled right now about what this looks like. So that piece for sure. And then, you know, as an employer, I think there's hard choices on that end too, right? Employers tend to have a bottom line that they have to meet. And it'd be nice to just tell everybody like, yeah, stay home till you feel comfortable and like take care of your family. But, you know, at the end of the day, that may or may not be possible to keep your business running. So, you know, as with everything, I think this is a good time to just have a lot of compassion for yourself and for other people, that these are hard choices. And even, you know, going all the way up to the top to like our, you know, politicians and leaders in the government that are making these choices, like there's no easy answers right now. So I think it's a nice time to kind of like cut your fellow human a break when they make choices that you don't like or that affect you negatively. Like they're probably also choosing from several bad answers and just trying to pick the least bad of all of those.
Okay, so Nicole, we actually had a couple of questions come in through the chat on Facebook. Zaina would like to know, how should we reach out and comfort our loved ones who are currently going through stages of anxiety and depression during the current situation?
I mean, I think the fact that you're reaching out and that you're interested in supporting them is most of it, right? That's 90% of it, is that you're wanting to be there for them. Again, I really like asking pretty direct questions like, how can I best support you? What would you like from me? You could even give them kind of like a menu of options. Like, would you like me to call and check in every day? Would you like me to ask you how you're feeling and then just listen? Would you like me to offer some solutions to you about how you might be able to make this better? Because it's hard to know how to support people who are going through complicated things like anxiety and grief. And sometimes people don't know what kind of support they want. So even if you ask those questions, you may not get an answer immediately, but that at least gets the wheels turning on like, okay, what would actually feel good right now? A lot of times people naturally jump to, I call it like solution giving, which sounds something like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, like it's gonna be fine, this is what you can do, it's gonna make it better, just make sure you do this, this, and this, and it's gonna be great. And I think that comes from a really nice, well-intentioned place, but to the person who's hearing it, it can sound minimizing of their concerns, kind of dismissive, which obviously you don't want to do. You're trying to help them, right? You want them to feel like you care and you hear them and what they're worried about is valid. It can also sound a little bit like, I don't know, sometimes kind of condescending, the solution talk right away, because it can have this kind of undertone of like, maybe I know better than you to be giving you these ideas and like telling you what you should do to feel better. Like you couldn't come up with that on your own. So just, I would say like steer clear of those kinds of things, like really like jumping into trying to give people solutions or tell them it's going to be okay right away, because those tend to be the two least helpful things that people do when trying to give support.
Thanks for that, Nicole. I just wanted to chime in and say that a lot of that resonated with me. Our family's gone through a lot of grief lately. And for me, I was the main contact person. When my brother was in the hospital, I was the one that was fielding all the text messages and getting all the questions. And the thing that I appreciated the most was people saying, can I do this for you? Or can I do that for you? And not always being asked, what can I do? Because when you're not at the top of your game anyway, you have decision fatigue so much faster than you normally would. And then you beat yourself up for not having an answer for people because you know that you want help. And if you're responsible for helping, you know, whoever else is around you, then I almost felt guilty when I didn't have an answer because I felt like it affected my parents. So the people I appreciated most were the ones that first of all acknowledged what we were going through and then said, I want to do this for you. When can I do it? Or what, you know, when would be best? You know, I want to send over a meal. Can I have it delivered on this date? Or are you already covered? Or can I get people organized to come help, you know, like take care of the yard or do whatever your parents need. So giving me the option A or B versus just like, what can I do? I want to do something. Give me a job. So helpful.
Yeah, I love that. That's super helpful. Really, really great advice from your perspective as somebody who's gone through a lot of grief. And you know, I just want to add on, as you were talking, of course, I had another idea that I think would be helpful to answer the question, which is sometimes it can be really simple. You can just say something like, man, that sounds really hard, or like, oh, that sucks. Like, tell me more about that. Like, it can be that easy. Yeah. Sometimes people just want to be heard and they want to know that the other person on the end of the line is like, yeah, I get it. You're going through things and that's hard and that sucks. So sometimes you can offer support just like that.
Yeah. If I could plug something in, I know at Texas State University with our counseling center, they offer at-risk training. I had to do it for my abnormal psychology class and for my peer mentor job. And basically it just shows you how to navigate these type of conversations of like, and it's like a simulation. So you get to choose what kind of answer you want to give, and then it'll give you feedback like, oh, that wasn't the right answer, like that's probably not the best way to approach those situations. And it's really interesting. I love it. At first I was like, this is weird, but it actually did teach you a lot. So I feel like that'd be really important. I know for Texas State we have it. I don't know if at other universities we do, but maybe if you could find like some sort of like resources or training that teach you how to navigate those conversations would be really helpful.
That's really cool.
Okay, well, Nicole, I know that you had some resources and things or some pointers that you wanted to share, but just really quickly, I'd like for us to go around and have each person share 1 to 2 things that are helping you take care of yourself during this time. I know for me, it's been creating the boundaries between work time and home time since they all happen in the same space. So trying to stick to a schedule as much as possible, but being okay when I kind of deviate. And then meditating has really helped me a couple of times a day, just stopping and completely focusing on myself and trying to recenter. So those have been mine.
I'll go next. So I know for me, my biggest coping mechanism has been talking to my friends and family, my Terry family, but also my sisters and my mom, having Zoom calls like this live with them and seeing their faces and hearing their voice, not just on a phone in your bubble, but in their home. And it gives you as close as you can to that social interaction. I'm an extrovert. I'm missing hugging people and laughing with people in person. And so for me, that's been really huge. I know I have still been serving as a Terry officer. And so doing that as well, making sure I'm reaching out to those people, but they're reaching out to me and being honest with them and saying, I'm having a hard day today. thank you for asking how I'm doing and asking them how they're doing as well. And as far as just managing everything, I think having like a planner, I love a to-do list. So I have like a passion planner. It's on sale right now. So if you need a new planner, since life has been upheaved everywhere, those are great. So those are the things that I've been doing just to care for myself.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Tiffany. Type A, extrovert, gold, all of it. This has been hard. So yeah, I also have a planner. I like to stay on schedule. I also have my roommate who's in the live audience behind the screen, that kind of holds me accountable. We kind of we talk to each other every 2 seconds, like, okay, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? And it just holds each other accountable. And that's been really helpful to stay on top of my work, as well as I also really enjoy checking in with my students. I enjoy talking to the officer team and being like, okay, what else can we do? What more can we do, Right. But in terms of like personal help, I started running. My knees are killing me today. But running has been, I'm so lucky to live in San Marcos where we have the trails right here. And there's one literally in my backyard. So I've dragged my roommate to go run with me or just walk, but that's definitely been like a good peaceful breathing time to just be like, okay, the world is still spinning and it's still working. Let me just get out of my bubble and just breathe for a second. So that's definitely been helpful. My knees hate me, but that's okay.
Oh, you're doing great.
Thank you.
I was going to say props to you for running, because I am definitely not running, but I have done a little bit of that as well. I've gone on walks. I have a really big parking lot because I live right behind the high school football stadium. So I have a big parking lot that's really close to my house. And so I've gone over there during the day, and I'll just take like a, 15, 20 minute, just like walk around the parking lot. And there have been other people who do that as well. And we're all, distanced, but we're walking, and you kind of just like wave at each other because we're all just walking, like wanted to get somewhere that wasn't inside your house. I've also done, music's really therapeutic for me. And so, like in normal times too. And so again, just to get out of the house, I'll go and I'll just like put on my favorite album or my favorite playlist or whatever in my car, and I'll just go drive around. I live in a semi-rural area, and so there's like all kinds of back roads and cool things that you can do. One of my favorite back roads here, they have the people who own this land are really happy when we all do this. I should preface, but they have like camels and kangaroos and like donkeys and all kinds of like cool stuff that you can go and see. And they, you can take like produce and veggies and like feed the animals. And so it's like a miniature petting zoo, but not really. You just feed them through the fence. But that's been a fun thing that I can like go do and like look forward to. I'm very, I don't know what it would be called, but I like to know that I'm looking forward to something. It keeps me going. I really identified with earlier, I think it was Nicole that said it seems like there's not a light at the end of the tunnel because we don't know when the end is. And so I've been trying to make little moments that I can look forward to, be that like what Tiffany said, the Zoom calls with my friends or things like this, just things that I can look forward to that help me get through the day. And then as far as staying on top of work, like schoolwork, I have a little bit of the friend component of like accountability, but something that I've been doing for myself is kind of like a goal-based like reward system. So I'll make a to-do list and I'll say, if I can get through like these 3 tasks, then I can like listen to a podcast episode, or I can like read a couple of chapters out of my like the pleasure book that I'm reading right now. So I'm not reading for school, but I'm still enjoying myself and doing that, because it feels like that, there's always some work to be done. And so when this all first started, I caught myself just like working and never doing anything that was helpful for me. And then I would just be tired at the end of the day, and then I'd start over and keep going. And so it's been helpful to kind of spread that work out and know that, you know, that thing isn't due until Sunday. You don't have to like do it right now because it's not really due yet. And so that's been something that's been really helpful for me, is just kind of pacing myself and giving myself a lot of grace. I know Amber said that as well. You know, if I deviate from that schedule, it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm okay. So that's been helpful for me.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Kristin?
For me, probably part of it is also my faith, is taking small moments to remember what I hope is grounding me. And so whether that's in the morning, just maybe reading a Bible verse, listening to some music, jamming out, taking a few quiet moments for myself before the stir crazy happens within the house. But also enjoying the small moments. So stopping and looking at the roly-polies with my son, or trash day is a really big day here because the garbage trucks come by, and getting excited for that, and finding those small things to find joy in. But I would also say I'm type A introverted, which is interesting during this whole pandemic, but it has been communicating a little bit more with my partner and saying things like, I am disappointed by X, or I am disappointed by Y, especially expecting a new baby to join us. My mom is kind of stuck in Washington State, in a different state. So realizing the due date's coming up, and, you know, just vocalizing like, I'm having a hard time with this, and not expecting a response or fulfillment from anybody else, but not stuffing it, has been, I think, freeing for myself as an introvert who can probably tends to stuff maybe a little bit more. And we tell our students a lot that your best can look different on different circumstances. So acknowledging that for myself, like my best right now as a parent, as a spouse, as a owner of a dog even, and even as an employee, all of that is going to look different, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah, for me, I think the main things that I'm doing that are helping is I'm really serious about taking a long walk every day with my daughter and her stroller. And that has made a huge difference, more than I thought it would. And also, I'm just really trying to keep some distance between me and any kind of fear-based media or news right now, because that was really stirring me up when this first started.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that I heard someone say on a podcast has really stuck with me. It's controlling your mental and emotional diet, just like you would control your physical diet, and how important that can be. So Nicole, I know that you had prepared a list of strategies people can follow to take care of their mental health. We'd love for you to share that with us.
Sure. And I apologize. It just started storming here in Austin. So if you hear thunder and my dog's barking, just try to ignore it.
Adaptation is the name of the game. We're all good.
Yes, of course. Of course. So anyway, this is kind of a long list, but we're going to make sure it gets included in the handout afterwards. I think there's going to be something. So anyway, I'm going to go through it as quick as I can. But I think the first thing and the main thing, if you get anything out of this, is like, just be compassionate with yourself right now. This is the time to be super kind to yourself. You're doing really difficult things in a way you've never done them before. So go easy on yourself for sure. As far as setting like a daily structure and a routine, I think that's really important. It can be nice to have some days that don't have any structure to give yourself a break, but long term, most of us do not function well like that. So it's really important that since you've lost your usual structure and routine, that you create some kind of structure for yourself, so that you're not just like sleeping and watching Netflix all day, because that is not going to make you feel good in the end, right, if you do that long term. I love that Andrew and Tiffany shared some things that I think can really help to add with that structure, like having a to-do list, having little things to look forward to, even if that's just like dinner tonight or a phone call with my mom tomorrow, something like that. Those things can really help to set some structure and some rhythm into your day. Basics of self-care: don't forget to sleep, eat, move your body a little bit, however you like to do that, walk, run, have a dance party, just move your body, do something. Also, like staying connected to people, like Kristin was saying, talking about stuff, not stuffing it down, but really like being able to have conversations with the people that you trust, that care about you, about how you're feeling, how you're doing. If you need to stay connected virtually to the people that you're not quarantined with, that's cool. Do what you got to do. Like I was saying, I think especially for people who have kind of like naturally anxious brains anyway, it's going to be really important to cut out or significantly limit your exposure to, you know, news that's particularly upsetting or fear-inducing, or, you know, Facebook feed, if it's getting all doom and gloom, like maybe take a break from Facebook or unfollow some things that you were looking at. What I started doing really early on is I tricked Facebook by liking or loving every cute animal or baby video that was posted. And so now my feed is like 80% cute animals and babies. And that's so much better than like the coronavirus scare stuff.
Right.
So you know,
genius.
Yeah, yeah. Use the algorithm to your advantage, right? Tell it what you want to see more of.
Right.
And then, you know, the last thing is just finding support and resources, whatever that looks like for you. Faith is a huge part of that, spirituality, like Kristin was saying, just like being present in the moment, finding little moments of joy that you can really like show up for is huge. And then, you know, other support and resources, if needed, now might be a great time to do some like telecounseling or go talk to your doctor, make sure that you're like doing okay in your physical body. And, you know, there's no shame in that, especially whenever really difficult things are happening in the outside world and you're having a hard time processing that. That's a great time to reach out for some extra support.
And so, Nicole, do you have some advice on how people can find resources?
I do have a little bit of advice. I wish I had more, but definitely check on campus with your resources. Those of y'all that are current students, you probably have some kind of mental health support at your campus. So check in on that and see if that's something that's available to you. Also, if you're on any kind of insurance benefits, be that your parents or your own or through your employer, you likely have some mental health benefits through that too, where you could see a counselor probably for cheap or free if you could find somebody through your insurance. And, you know, right now, since most counselors are doing teletherapy, televideo, that's actually kind of good for you, because if you live in Texas, then you can actually talk to any counselor in Texas. We're licensed to see people throughout the whole state. So that gives you actually a lot more options, especially if you live in kind of like a rural or underserved area. And also one good resource online, other than just like Googling to try to find a counselor or a support group or something like that, is to use psychologytoday.com. That's a pretty huge database to find counselors, psychiatrists, support groups, all kinds of good mental health resources available on psychologytoday.com.
Great, thanks so much, Nicole. So I have a few closing remarks, but while I'm doing those, if anyone else has additional questions that you want to include in the chat, please feel free to add those. But one of the main things we wanted to make sure that we just stated up front for everybody, that this session is meant to be supportive, but it is not meant to take the place of personal consultation with your physician or with a mental health professional. So if that is something that you feel like you need to do, we do encourage you to do that, where that's not what this session is meant for. We want to create the support within our community, but this was not meant to have all the answers for everyone. Of course, we do hope that you did get some good information out of it. And if anything else, we hope it makes you feel not alone, and that you're not overreacting or reacting in the right or wrong way, because that looks different for everyone. And these are all of our personal circumstances. So of course, you're allowed to be different. And The reminder that we gave in Monday's stream that I feel like is just worth repeating is that, you know, for the Terry Scholars on here, all of you were chosen to be a part of this community by fellow Terry Scholars who saw in you that you have the grit, you have the determination, and you have what it takes to be successful. And if you remember, the way that Mr. Terry defined success was the achievement of goals that you set for yourself in life. He didn't say how you were supposed to do it. He didn't say the timeline you were supposed to use, because those things are variable. So if a change happens and you're still able to find a way to meet your goal, that's what's most important. And it might look different, it might feel different, it might take longer, but it doesn't mean you don't have what it takes, especially now with all of this uncertainty. The important thing that we always want the scholars to remember is we have never, nor will we ever, expect perfection. It's not attainable, it's not possible, but doing your best. And as Kristin said, your best looks different on any given day. So my best today might be completely different than my best tomorrow. And that's all I have to give. And that is more than enough. Your best is always more than enough. And we are so proud of everyone. We're so proud of the efforts that this community is taking to come together for each other with things like this, and with the efforts that our student officers are making. We do have Terry Connect as a resource. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to go in, work on your profile, log in, try to connect with people. There's certainly alumni for you current students to go reach out to, but reach out to each other, other people in your major, other people at your school. This is the time for community, and that's one of the great advantages of being a Terry Scholar, is that community is built in. It's always here for you. And for you seniors, when you finally do get to walk the stage and sort of celebrate this, this great milestone that you and your family, and that you've worked so hard to achieve, just know that you have this entire community behind you and celebrating with you. So even if we all can't be together the way that we wanted to, we will be able to eventually. Some notes on some other streams this week. So tomorrow, I'm really excited that we're going to be having a stream with Jonathan Brewer, who is an emergency medicine resident in Dallas. So we have some pre-med Terry Scholars who are going to be talking to him about medical school and then what his life looks like right now. And on the 25th, on Saturday, we're so excited to be bringing you our first Terry talent show. Yay. So this is going to be Terry artists and Terry musicians, basically just spending the evening sharing their musical and artistic talents with you. So if you need a diversion on Saturday, we hope you'll tune in, because one of the awesome things about this community is it's so diverse, and there's literally people with a talent and a knowledge and a skill set in any area you can imagine. And we're just so proud of that, and we can't wait to share it. I'm having a look at our chat really quick, and it doesn't look like we have any additional questions or comments, but panelists, is there anything that y'all would like to add before we close out today's session?
I think for me, just to tell all my fellow Terrys out there, just to be kind to yourself. I think that's something we've all echoed here today. Give yourself some grace. And like Amber said, we were all chosen for a reason. If you're a transfer like myself, I think a lot of transfers, or Terrys in general, may struggle with imposter syndrome. Whatever your circumstances right now, it's hard for everyone. And so just give yourself that grace and understand that your Terry family is here for you. And yeah, that would be my main offering.
Great, thanks, Tiffany.
I would echo that just by saying, if you are a current Terry Scholar, remember that your on-campus coordinators are still at the universities. They might be working from home, but their role has not changed in the support that they desire to give to you. And as we mention at orientation often, we don't know if you need help until you tell us what's going on. And that starts with talking to your on-campus coordinator. So reaching out to them, whether that's, you're struggling with a class because it's moved online, or you don't have tutoring services, or you don't have a safe place necessarily to kind of just spread out all your studies without your organic chemistry getting colored on or something like that. So make sure you reach out to those coordinators, because they do care.
And yeah, we want to give a huge thank you to our coordinators that always, do amazing work for our students, but it's been so wonderful to see the way that they're adapting and they're stepping up right now when our students need them the most. So just a big thank you to y'all. I saw a couple of our coordinators get a shout out in the feed as well. So thank you guys so much. Okay, well, panel, we really appreciated having you on today. Nicole, thank you so much for taking your time to share your experience with us. And I hope that everyone has a happy and safe remainder of their day. And hopefully we'll see y'all on another stream. So bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.